Hello everyone, this is Molly, and today's training is in regards to quality assurance for chat. Um, so our funders for the Problem Gambling Helpline, the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, have asked us to begin providing chat services for them 24/7. So we anticipate that we will be doing that starting on April 1st. We're going to see how that goes. And then at some point, we will begin offering chat for 211 24 hours a day. We don't have a exact date in mind yet. We're going to see how things go with making Problem Gambling Chat 24/7, and then at some point in the near future, we'll then extend those hours for our 211 chatters. So before we did that, though, we really realized that we needed to work on a quality assurance guide specific for chat, and kind of do a little bit of retraining. Initially, when we started offering chat, we kind of were flying by the seat of our pants, and we didn't really go over guidelines in as much depth as we should have. So the result is we've got a lot of different people handling chat in a lot of different ways. So we wanted to roll out this new quality assurance guide for everyone to kind of tighten up those guidelines so that there's some clarity as far as what the expectations are for chat before we train the remaining staff on handling chats, and before we extend our hours into 24/7 chat service. So for those of you who are not yet trained on chat, once you complete viewing this webinar, there's going to be a couple more steps for you. There is a short training that you will each view in Contact University. Contact University is a training module that is available through InContact. So at the end of this webinar, I'm going to show you how to log into that. It's a very brief course. It should only take maybe about 6 minutes to complete it. We're going to allot approximately 10 minutes for you to complete it so that you can review some of the sections more than once if you need to. And then the next step after that is you will all, for those of you who have never handled chat before, you will all have an opportunity to practice handling a chat or a couple chats with either Candy or myself. I will be working one-on-one with everyone that primarily works evenings and weekends. Candy will be working one-on-one with those of you who work during the days. So we're going to start today off. What you see here is our updated quality assurance guidelines for chat. And what I've done here is basically highlighted any area where there's any sort of deviation from our standard QA guide. And so you can assume that every metric is going to remain the same unless it's something that I am going over with you right now. So like, for example, the entire content section of the QA guide is all the same. So you will still need to do the appropriate assessment and finding the resources, providing enough information for the individual to follow through with those resources. So all the stuff that you typically would do in a phone call, it's expected that you do that in chat as well. But there are some changes in both the communication and the procedure section. So that's what we're going to talk about right now. So the first change is the very first metric, which is used an appropriate greeting. We're actually removing that from the QA guide as it relates to chat, because InContact will automatically greet your client with the appropriate greeting once you accept the chat. So that piece is already done for you. So here I'm scrolling through this next metric, demonstrated a willingness to help. This is all exactly the same as what you'd see in our regular QA guide. The only thing that I've added is periodically throughout this chat guide, I've inserted some tips that primarily relate to the what we call the quick replies. And for those of you who've never used chat before, a quick reply is essentially a canned response that you can use that is just going to help you save some keystrokes and to kind of move the chat along a little more quickly. So here in this tip, use the quick reply. I would be happy to help you with that to save some keystrokes. That quick reply would meet the metric of demonstrating a willingness to help, because you are telling them that you are willing to help them, essentially. I'm scrolling through here, and as you can see, a lot of this is exactly the same as what you're going to, what you see in the regular QA guide. So the next little tweak that I have in here is for the metric attempted to establish dialogue and asked correct questions to determine client needs. And what's a little bit different about that metric is just the tip that I added in here, that there are a few quick replies that can help with establishing dialogue, including but not limited to, so here's just a few examples. How long has this been a problem for you? May I ask what happened that caused you to fall behind on your payments? I want to explore all avenues that could possibly be helpful. Could you tell me a little more about the situation and what happened? Okay, so the next change that we have in the QA guide is for the metric used appropriate tone and pace throughout the contact. So you'll see this is just slightly different and tweaked so that it better reflects doing this through a chat versus through a verbal conversation. So now the metric reads, remained welcoming, friendly, and personable, avoided overwhelming client with multiple questions in a single response, allowed the client to answer current question before sending additional questions, limited the number of words or characters sent in a single response, and if necessary, employed strategies to focus or refocus the client on needs or resources, and or maintain control of the conversation or contact. So kind of in a nutshell, the big thing that we're looking at here is we don't want to just copy and paste entire sections out of Refer and just send it to the client all at once. When you're when you're communicating with someone through a chat like this, we really want to kind of keep our responses short. Usually a couple sentences is good. There may be times when you might need to type a little bit more, maybe 3 sentences, but I would really be cautious about typing responses longer than that, because it's just it is very overwhelming. We want short, simple responses whenever possible. So when the score is yes, the couple of changes that we have in here is specialist avoided sending lengthy responses. And specialist avoided overwhelming client with multiple questions in a single response. So just ask them one question at a time. Okay. And then finally, we have in here, specialist politely refocuses client when he or she brings up new issues before the specialist and client finish addressing the initial request. So here's some sample language here. Client, my gas is off and I don't have the $175 that I need to get it back on. Specialist, I'm sorry to hear your gas is disconnected, but I would be happy to look for some programs that may help you get your service restored. Client, I'm also a week behind on my rent. My job only pays minimum wage. I really need to get some training so that I can find something better. And then specialist, we can talk about options for rent assistance and job training, but it sounds like getting your gas back on is your most urgent need. How about we start by looking for some gas payment assistance programs, and then we can talk about your rent and job training. Okay. And then when the score is no, here's just some sample language of when the score would be no for this metric. Client, my gas is off and I don't have the $175. I need to get it back on. Specialist, I'm sorry to hear your gas is disconnected. May I have your age and zip code, and can you tell me if you're on PIP and how far behind on the bill that you are and what caused you to fall behind on your payments? So we don't want to overwhelm them with all of those questions all at once. So the next metric that is slightly different is used correct grammar and spelling, used short, simple sentences, explained acronyms, avoided slang, emojis, and SMS language, also, aka text speak. So a lot of this metric is very similar to what it is in our regular QA guide. The big difference is using SMS language or emojis. So we do want to avoid that because use of emojis or SMS language is too casual, and it may cause our clients to question our professionalism. When the score is yes, there's just a couple of differences in here. You're going to explain any acronyms, and not only acronyms, but any sort of abbreviation that you use. You want to explain what it is before you start using abbreviations. And then that you avoided using slang, emojis, and SMS language. So here's a sample of what you should not do. Client is looking for rent assistance and the specialist types, OMG, you ever heard of the PRC program at JFS? I want to tell you about what it does because it could maybe help with all the stuff you got going on, smiley face emoji. So don't do that. Too casual. Okay, I'm just scrolling through these. All of these next few metrics are exactly the same as they are for our regular QA guide. So as you can see, not a whole lot of changes. Still scrolling. All right. So the next metric where there's some tweaks is controlled silence gaps, but also avoided irrelevant conversation. So whereas in a phone call, our silence gap shouldn't be longer than 10 seconds, with the chat, you are allotted a little bit more time. You want to check back in with your client within 60 seconds of silence, or inform the caller ahead of time that there is going to be a silence gap and give them an approximate length of time of how long it's going to be before you return. And then I have a tip in here of use the quick replies to check in with your client and also to save some keystrokes. These quick replies are going to be particularly helpful when you're handling 2 chats at a time. So for those of you who don't currently take chats, we will be handling 2 at a time, but we'll get more into that later on. Okay, so the next metric that's a little bit different, or not really different, but we deleted the metric for avoided unnecessary interruption or talking over the caller, because chats involve typing and not talking, so you're not really going to be able to talk over them. Okay, this next thing that's a little bit different, it's not so much that it's different, but there's an additional tip in here for using the appropriate closing. Our official closing is right in the quick replies, so you can use that. It'll save you some keystrokes, and it will also guarantee that you will get points for that metric. Okay. Like I said earlier, the content section is exactly the same. So this whole middle part of the QA guide, it's going to be exactly the same no matter if you're handling a chat or if you're handling a call. So let me kind of slide through those. And then so now we're in the procedure section. We have a couple things that we removed, followed proper hold procedures, because you can't put a chat on hold. So we've deleted that metric, and then followed proper reskill or transfer procedures. We removed that because we are not going to be reskilling or transferring chats. For those of you that are going to be doing the InContact University training, you'll see that in InContact, there's the capability to reskill or transfer a chat, but we are not going to be doing that. So we don't want you to reskill or transfer any sort of chats. If it's presented to you and you accept it, then you need to handle it. If it's something that requires a supervisor's attention, then you'll need to ask that person for a telephone number for a supervisor to call them back. Okay, gathering demographic information, that's the same. The demographic questions are all in the quick replies. You can use those to save you some time and save you some keystrokes. And that kind of leads into this very last metric. It's a brand new one that we added, which is used canned responses appropriately. So you want to select a canned response that appropriately fits into the conversation, or you want to edit the canned response before you send it so that it does fit the conversation. So canned responses are great, and they can be helpful with saving keystrokes and time. However, when they sound canned rather than personalized, it gives the client the impression that either they're communicating with a chatbot or with someone who's not really paying attention to what they're saying. So when the score is yes, specialist selects appropriate canned message and or edits it as necessary before sending. So some sample language of when the score is yes. Client, I am completely out of food and I need to know where I can get some groceries today. And the specialist replies, I'm sorry to hear that, but I would be happy to help you locate some food pantries. Since different programs serve different areas and ages, may I ask for your zip code and your age? When the score is no, it's when you send a canned message without ensuring that it sounds like a personal response. So an example of that would be the client tells you, I am completely out of food and I need to know where I can get some groceries today. And the specialist replies, since different programs serve different areas and ages, may I have the zip code and the age of the person who needs assistance? We would want to avoid using this canned message because clearly the client just told you that they're the one that needs food. So you'd want to tailor that so that you're asking for the chatter's age and zip code, not the person who needs the assistance, because they made it clear that they are the person that needs assistance. In the quick replies, I have entered in some of these demographic questions in various ways so that they can be a little bit more specific for each individual situation. So like, for example, I have in there that this piece about different programs serve different areas and ages. May I ask for your zip code and age? And then I also have it, may I ask for the zip code and age of the person who needs assistance? So you've got a couple different options there. I've also entered it in there so it's just asking for one of those things at a time. So somebody might tell you right away, I'm in 44105 and I need a food pantry today. Well, we already know what their zip code is, so there's also a canned response in there, a quick reply in there that says, since programs sometimes serve different age groups, do you mind if I ask for your age? So those demographic questions, you'll see that they're in there in a variety of ways, so that hopefully you can find one that's tailored for your individual chatter's situation. If not, you can always tweak those quick replies before you hit the send button so that it sounds personal to that individual. So that's it as far as changes to the QA guide. Matt Finley will be uploading the QA chat guide onto 211oh.org/staff. So you'll be able to find it in the same spot as our regular QA guide. So if you want to take a look at it and review it, feel free to do that. And then I want to take the last couple minutes here and just talk about the next steps in chat training for those of you who have not ever done chats before. So InContact has a training module called InContact University. So it's university.incontact.com is where you're going to go. You're going to click on courses. And the course that you'll be taking is 1621. All right. You're going to select ACD Max Agent. And then you'll get to a screen. It will look almost exactly like this. The only different thing is, since I've already taken the course, this button here says retake the course. For those of you who've never taken it before, it's just going to say take course. So you're going to click on there. And this fancy little thing is going to load up. And then you're going to hit the start button. And then you'll see you can adjust the volume over here. I'm turning it down so I can hear myself talk. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see a menu. And most of this is stuff that you already know. So you're just going to scroll through until you get to the chat section. All right. Where did it go? Okay. So it's all the way at the bottom. It's the last thing. So you're going to be viewing accept the chat, quick replies. You're going to skip this omni-channel elevation because we don't use that feature. You're going to watch concurrent chats. You do not need to watch transfer or commitment because we will not be using those features. And then you will use the try it feature, which just gives you the opportunity to practice the mechanics of doing a chat. So it just kind of simulates it. So it's telling me accept this chat contact, so I'm going to click the accept button. So it just helps you to kind of practice those mechanics. This training through InContact University is pretty brief. I think it takes about 6 minutes for each of those sections that I've asked for you to view. You will be given about 10 minutes, though, to go through it in case you want to watch one of these topics more than one time. I will be sending out an email with all of these instructions on accessing InContact University and detailing out which sections that you are to watch. Once you have completed that, Candy and I will be working with you to practice the mechanics and just making sure that everybody's comfortable with it before you start handling chats. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email and I'd be happy to answer them. And so thanks for watching this training video.